Welcome back to World Crisis Radio. Just a few other embellishments on this idea of Obama caving in, the caveman, because he caves into these extremists at every occasion. A pushover. He gets rolled. The New York Times editorial commenting on the Satan sandwich with Satan prize calls it a nearly complete capitulation to the hostage-taking demands of Republican extremists. It will hurt programs for the middle class and poor and hinder an economic recovery. Fair enough. Progressive Caucus of the California Democratic Party passed a resolution to explore a possible primary challenge against President Obama. Bring it on, oh Progressive Caucus of the fine California Democratic Party. David Letterman said Obama's idea of a compromise is the same kind of compromise that Custer got from Sitting Bull, with Obama, of course, as Custer. So, pathetic performance. But again, why? Think about the blackmail. And that's another reason why a primary challenge is all the more imperative. Now, we also have to think about the future of democracy. This talk about bipartisanship is profoundly wrong. If you want to have a democratic system of representative government, a democratic republic of the kind that we seem to have, you have to have an opposition that opposes. The idea that bipartisanship, the coming together and meeting in the middle, that's good for democracy, it's not. It has to be an opposition, but on fundamental issues, not just on personalities or trivia, but the main things. The two examples are the leadership of the German social democracy in the early 1930s, under the influence of Hilferding and Otto Wels, decided that they would support the austerity dictatorship of Brüning. Brüning, the hunger chancellor, we've talked about him, deflationary. He did all the things the Austrian school likes. So he was gouging the working masses of Germany. The Social Democrats gave him indirect and often direct parliamentary support to make it possible for Brüning to essentially carve the hide of the German working population. What did this lead to? It meant that the entire democratic representative system became discredited. It led to the rise in an extremist alternative of the Nazis in this case, because there was nothing in the system that promised something different. So it became easy to say, well, this entire system is rotten. We're getting close to something like that now. Compare this, of all things, to Britain. The Labour Party, after being kicked out of the government by Ramsay MacDonald in 1931, you remember, in order to have an austerity regime after September 1931, or more or less around that time, Ramsay MacDonald, the Labour Party prime minister, he basically quit his own party and joined a government of national unity with the Tories, with the Conservatives. But this meant that from 1931 to 1945, there was a Labour Party opposition which opposed the austerity policies of Baldwin and Chamberlain and later Churchill during the war. And this meant, along with other factors, not the only one, but it's useful to see it this way, that it prevented the wandering of large masses towards, say, the British Union of Fascists of Sir Oswald Mosley. We are now in a situation where representative government is in danger because, in effect, we can call it the illusion of bipartisanship, that Obama, following this idiocy of bipartisanship, capitulates. He should fight. It would have been possible to say to the Republicans, you go ahead and do it. Go ahead and bring down the government. Go ahead and drive the U.S. into default. You'll get no cuts. You'll get no cuts to the New Deal entitlements, no cuts to the Great Society programs, no cuts to domestic discretionary beyond a few minor things. You go to your Wall Street masters and see what they say. And Wall Street naturally would have told them, and we've got an article now in the Wall Street Journal of today about how adamant Wall Street was that they wanted the debt ceiling raised. You go to your masters and see what they think, and you work it out with them. because we're going to give you a clean bill. We're not going to raise taxes, but we're not going to have any genocidal cuts. We're just going to say the debt ceiling is raised by $3 trillion. And you can vote for that or you can vote against it. And if you vote against it, go tell Jamie Dimon and the rest of those guys why you destroyed their racket and see what they do for you. So you can start collecting horses' heads. You'll get one in your bed every night from Wall Street. If you do that, dear Tea Party, that would have been the response from Wall Street. So this is why Obama is not viable. We also have to think for the Democrats, right? What did you learn in 2010? What was that election all about? Why did Democratic support go down so dramatically in 2010? I don't think it's what many people would say. I think it's because Obama insisted on $500 billion of Medicare cuts. This was not an ideological issue. This was Medicare recipients saying, oh, you want to cut $1/2 trillion out of my hide? You're no good. Since people of that age group vote quite remarkably high proportions compared to the rest of the population, that is what sank the Democratic Party. The cuts to Medicare essentially mean that the Democratic Party stands for nothing, and there they go. Now, in Italy right now, it looks like the IMF and Sarkozy and others are demanding a balanced budget amendment to the Italian constitution. They are demanding the liberalization of the entire economy. This means more free market insanity. Look what they demand, right? If you think the free market is a good program here, what they're demanding from Italy at gunpoint is the free market. Reform labor. That means destroy your labor laws. Open the closed professions. It means no more licensing for things that often do need a license. I'm sorry, they do need a license in some of these cases. And generally, austerity. So that's what's being extorted out of Italy this afternoon with the help of Geithner, I'm sure, the International Monetary Fund. Before we leave the IMF, we've got Christine Lagarde having been installed by a U.S. coup. I think French nationalist forces are fighting back because they're investigating Lagarde now for her malfeasance and corruption when she was the French finance minister. So that, I think, wraps up the economic complex. Let's look at the international picture here for a while. In Egypt, we have the 19 tyrants, right? We have the 19 members of the military junta. 19 tyrants of Egypt. And at the top of that, you've got Field Marshal Tantawi, and we know who runs him. He takes orders from Samantha Power in the Obama White House. And they are now going towards some confrontation with the mob, quite frankly. And we've had the kangaroo court trial of Mubarak beginning. We'll be back in a minute.